The murder charges were eventually dropped in March of 2016, being dismissed without prejudice, which of course means that they could be charged
Yep.
again, right, if new evidence is found that links them to Heather's murder. The kidnapping charges were reduced to pending, and the indecent exposure charges were dropped because really, who cares at that point? In June 2016, Sidney went on trial for kidnapping, though that ended in a hung jury with only 2 jurors holding out. The following year, Sidney was tried for the obstruction of justice charge, which he did receive the maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison. In 2018, Tammy was on trial for the kidnapping and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison for each charge, so she got 60 years. And finally, in 2019, Sidney is tried for kidnapping, and he as well is found guilty and sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. Both Sidney and Tammy have maintained their innocence. So, there's some justice there. I think just because a body has not been found doesn't mean that a murder didn't take place, right? They know from all of this other evidence, from the cell phone data, from the payphone calls, from seeing his truck leave and come back, the GPS in the truck being manually disabled, all these different things, and there's probably more, that we don't even know about. There's no way that they're not connected or involved in this girl's disappearance, right?
It's highly circumstantial. How long did she go? She went away for 60 years?
60.
Wow.
They've never found her body.
And they never actually saw either of them kidnap this girl.
No.
Wow.
No, there's no cameras at that landing, I guess. But I think that you have to make listen, you're not talking about 4 p.m. where it's like, no, look, man, yeah, I was on my way home from work, or I went to the store. You're talking about almost 4 in the morning, knowing that it's you. They did, the FBI and the state troopers and all that, they did confirm that it was his truck. They knew that he was going to that landing and going back, and that's the last place she was seen. And we know that they talked to her, or that she talked to somebody on the other end of his phone. So, it's like how
Yeah, so like as we wrap this up, like what are you left with? What are the things that, like, as you've gone through this, what are the things that you think of that were either done right or wrong, or what are your own theories on what really happened?
I think it had, if I look at this, I think it was just I think it was a fun fling, and she was excited by that and probably didn't realize who she was getting involved with. And I think Tammy is the orchestrator, in my opinion, of everything. I mean, she seems like the one pulling the strings. And I laugh about it. And that's what I was saying. It's like there's some things in this story that are so funny, handcuffing your husband to the bed, all that shit. But on a serious note, that is crazy. You have to be mentally unbalanced to think that that's okay in your marriage. And for Sidney to be like, okay, that speaks to his level of like.
I think the biggest surprise for me, just in thinking about the whole story, is that it was both of them. That it was Sidney and Tammy. Like, the relationship was not good. Like, there was probably a pregnancy test that was shared. There was, this trip to Disneyland. And somehow the resolution is we're going to go in and do this together. Like, I did not expect that. I expected it was either Sidney or it was Tammy, but I did not expect both of them to run into trouble like they did and to face the charges and the convictions that they did, and being in prison. So, that is not the way I thought it would end.
Yeah, me either. And I think, again, I kind of feel like Tammy she obviously had just this control over, and I don't know, maybe Sidney is just a kind of dopey, dumb guy. I don't know. But she obviously had a way where she could make him do what she wanted, and even including murder. Because, I think the guy probably cared about, to some degree, Heather Elvis, right? Otherwise, he would have just been like, "No, really, I'm done."
It's surprising to me that because of their fraught relationship, Sidney and Tammy, that one of them wouldn't have kind of sold out and said, "This is actually what happened, and I'm going to get the better time,
Yeah.
a shorter sentence from jail." I'm surprised by that because it's not like they were going to be lovers for life and that this was a dream relationship. You would think that one of them would have sold the other out, even though they were quote unquote married.
Yeah.
It wasn't great.